Okay, I will try to keep this quick. I don't think this is a very quick subject, but so line work in Procreate and wanting to make shapes that you can engrave, also score, possibly cut. Okay, what I would do, this is the example picture that you posted, so I'm going to right click on this one. My workflow would be this, and this is not the only way to do it, or probably the right way to do it, but it'll probably get you there. So I'm going to go into Inkscape and paste that design in there. Okay, right now it's pretty rough in the, you're going to go to Path and Trace Bitmap. You get this dialog here. And threshold is pretty much all you're worried about. Obviously, if I turn it too far down, I don't get anything. I start to get, a little bit. Now I'm getting a nice clear image. You go a little past, you'll start to get fuzzy, and then you'll lose it. So find a little sweet spot where the image comes into view, and before you start getting fuzz around the line work. I'm pushing it pretty far. Right about there seems okay to me. I will hit apply. It looks like nothing happened, but when you drag away, this is your original image, and here is your brand new SVG. These are vectors. If I go to the node tool, you can see that they are vectors, and they can be manipulated as such. Now, as much as I love this program, Inkscape, and thank you to the developers for making it free, I'm going to right click and copy and get on out of here over into Affinity. So Affinity, I just have a 10 by 10. This is where I design in a 10 by 10 inches at 300 dpi. I stand corrected. This is my Tumblr template, so I'm going to close that and go to File, New, and my design sketch is 10 by 10 at 300 dpi. Doesn't much matter with a vector, but there you have it. I'm going to paste in our line work, and I'm going to just make it roughly this size. Okay, so now all we have, the way it comes in from Inkscape is sort of a pain in the ass. I go and release it just to make it path. So I can name this if I want to. This is my outline layer. Now, in order to start making shapes out of it, now you could go right now and engrave this, or score it. It might look all right scored. I mean, you have to remember that the thicker a line is, scored, it'll work. It just doesn't work amazingly well with really thick lines. You can, even in Inkscape, I think you could probably do an inset. And by that I mean you could hold down the control key and hit the brackets number 9 and number 0 and make the lines a little thinner. If that's the look you're going for. My problem is and you could do this later. You'll see at the end, if you want to do this step to do a score, you could do that. But anyways, I digress. This would be problematic for me in this case because I need these lines to be closed on the outside. So yeah, you can use the inset and the offset to mess with the it gets a little messy there, to mess with the line width, or the shape rather, width. Anyways, back in here I've did an image trace. I copy and pasted in here and sized it back up, so we're to there. What I would do now is, in Affinity there's a tool here called the Vector Flood Fill. And this basically uses the line work that is here, as long as it's closed, and it sort of does like a flood fill if you've ever used Photoshop or anything like that to fill in a color. And Procreate is the same way, where you hold the color in the corner and drag it over into an outline. As long as it's closed, it'll fill that entire area. So if you've ever used Procreate, that's sort of the way this works. But in this instance, it also creates a vector shape for you. So I can go, and if I want to make his hat red, I'm going to go up here and select the red color, and I move into that area and click. And what happened is it filled that area in all the way up to the edge of the outline. And what it's done is created just a red vector shape. So you could cut this, you could engrave this. And then what you can do is simply, say you want these to be that, you could have these be that same color red if you wanted to. I'll go back to my vector flood fill and select my outline. I could make these, now they're going to be 3 separate shapes. And later on what I'll do is I'll attach all these together. Say I want his lips to be red, and then I'm gonna go with maybe a pinky, maybe a flesh color like this, and that looks okay, I suppose. And if I need his mouth to be black, I can make that black, and this is just making layers, you know, all over this thing. So this is also good for Cricut, folks, that kind of thing. But also good for lasers, because you could cut all, you know, the color doesn't matter, but you can cut all these shapes out and paint them individually. And I'll show you real fast how to make like a backer board, like a full offset, just by grouping all these together and making a copy. So anyways, we've got all this, you know, we could go and make his beard a separate color. You know, I'll make it like a light gray just so we can see it. And I'll need to fill in that one and say his hair like there, and maybe his eyebrows. I'm going to keep that white, all that white. I'm going to hold down the I key to get, oops, no, I'm going to use the eyedropper to load this back in and fill in this little area here, just because I don't like to have any holes. So anyways, what you could do now, you could go to view and view mode and go to grayscale and sort of get an idea of what it's going to look like in an engraving. You see the problem here is that these two tones are very close to each other. So you would need to adjust that, I would say, just to get, if you were going to engrave, I mean, obviously you would probably just want to leave his flesh, you know, white, but then, you know, then it's not going to really pop against his head. So play with your color tones, but this view, this grayscale view is nice because it sort of gives you an idea of power, you know what I mean? Because obviously our laser doesn't see color, it sees shades of gray. Black is full power, white is no power, and everything in between is varying degrees of power when it comes to engraving, you know. Well, you know, if you set 50, black, pure black is going to be 50%. It's going to be the highest you set. And then, you know, half of that down on the way to white is going to be 25, and so on and so forth. So I like this view. It's nice. But anyways, we'll go back to turn off the grayscale. So I would adjust that color. You know, maybe I'm going to take the other two colors that I select, all three of those, and combine them just so that they're on the same page. And so you could go and adjust that color, either lighter or darker, you know, probably lighter, much lighter, I suppose, just a little bit, so it's still a shape, and maybe you'll differentiate. If I go to view now and go to grayscale, yeah, there's a little more of a difference there. You can see, you know, it's still subtle, but it's there, and it sort of differentiates between those two. I would have to go in here and figure out why that's doing that. I imagine that it's probably me not using the flood fill to get that gap in between these two. I'm going to select that one and that one, make my color black, and fill in between those two and see what happens. Yeah, I probably just, yeah, that's what it was. I just needed to, I believe I needed to take that mouth and join it, yeah, with the outline shape. So where were we? Okay, so now you could export this, you know, for cutting. I would again take all of these shapes and add them together if they're all going to be painted the same, that kind of thing. I would take all my reds and add those together. Let me go back to view and get rid of this grayscale again. Let's see, so we got, I'm going to take the two greens and I'm going to, I'm not really sure what this layer is. Oh, it's this black layer again. I'm going to merge you. Actually, probably what I need to do, just get rid of that one. Yeah. I don't think I need this layer. Yeah, just gone. Okay. So we've got, let's see, this red can probably go up here. And this layer. We've got our red layer. We've got our outline layer. So now I'm going to keep a hold of this, this layer, this outline layer, because you could use it to score. You could just go ahead and export this as a separate entity. Since I've only got it selected right now, if I go to File, Export, I can save this in SVG, but if right now it's got my artboard selected, I would go to Selection Only, and it's just going to do that outline, and that's going to be at the same size. I've got a, I export in 72 DPI, and it seems to be it's true to size when it comes into XCS. You can obviously scale it when you get into XCS or Lightburn, but this I've found if it's an inch in Affinity and I export an inch square into XCS, it'll be an inch in there as well. So 72 DPI seems to work. But you could put this later over top of a PNG that's engraved. So there's two ways to do it. I could export this as a PNG without the well, you'd probably need, you could export this as a PNG and then put the other one on top of it and have as a separate score layer. Or I could do a little editing here and at least put the eyes in and that kind of thing, and the mouth in for an engrave, and then just have the score so you're not going over it twice, if you know what I mean. Like that way it won't engrave the outline and then score the outline. But I would need to go in here and probably, let's see, if I have this layer selected and I go to flood fill, I could probably click here and here and here just to get those mouths that back. So now if I turn off my outline layer, alright, that one didn't take on the other eye, so let me go back to the vector flood fill and I'll zoom in and click that. It looks like it's adding it into something else. Yeah, see, here's the problem, is that it's going, if I hold down Alt and go to that layer, I can see that it filled it in because these are all attached. So what I would have to do is make a copy and separate these two. But you know, this video is already getting long as hell. So, but if you know what I mean, the reason that when I clicked this eye, it didn't fill it in is because it's attached to all of this as one continuous shape. So I would have to go in here and take a knife tool and like slice that little bit out. And you could do that right now. I mean, it's not, I'm gonna say it's a long video, but I mean, it's not that huge of a deal. I would just delete the rest of that. Anyways, as long as I've still got this intact, but Yeah, you end up with these straight layers I don't need. Okay, so I'd have to go and do the mouth again, it looks like. But see, I think it's attached as well. If I go back to the outline, yeah, see, I would have to do the exact same thing, which, you know, you just take a copy of that, take the knife tool and drag a little area around it, and you get the mouth, which you want to keep, and then all the rest of this garbage can get deleted as such. So now we've got the mouth and the two eyes, and I'm going to group those together. Actually, I'll just combine them. So if I turn my outline off, I could export this, you know what I mean, and just have it engrave that for me, and then score the rest. I could go back in and clean these. I could clean this, these lines up, that kind of thing. But again, this is getting crazy advanced. Well, not advanced, but taxing on your patience, I'm sure. But anyways, I'm just gonna get rid of those for now and just assume that we're gonna do the entire picture. So I would export this as a PNG and then export, take that SVG and lay over top of each other. So if I do that, we've got all of these selected. I'm gonna group them together. I go to File, Export. We didn't get our white in there. Document settings, transparent background. Okay, we're not. We don't have any white. Oh God. It's not my morning. Not enough coffee or too much. I don't know. Okay, so now these two can get combined. And then I'm going to stick them into our group. Okay, so now I can export as a PNG and just do an engrave, or let's try to export this for XCS and see what it looks like when it gets into XCS. Let's see how it does, because it's in layers, but I want to see what of a mess it is before I lead you astray. It's right here, creative space. So my apologies. Give it a second. Got lots of stuff open today. I'm just doing some tutorials in Photoshop and a lot of sublimation stuff. But this was nice when this came up on my radar. Like I said, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, but I'm starting to get okay at this stuff. I've been spending a lot of time on it lately, so I try to help out when I can. And Santa XCS. Okay, so what does it look like when I go in here? What kind of layers am I looking at? If I hit engrave, so that's the hat, holly, engrave, and so I would set my powers here, and then this looks like the outline, I would say. No, that's all the white areas, so that would be an engrave at a very low power. Unfortunately, it sort of lumped all those together, I suppose. The outline layer can be, yeah, that's the outline layer. So you can leave that as score. And you see the problem is, though, what it's doing with score is it's treating this, and this is a problem that a lot of people have with Cricut and stuff like that, is because when it cuts out, this is fine. It doesn't know the difference because you're getting a thick line exactly the way you want, a vinyl or paper or whatever it is. But with a score, and it's the same thing in the Cricut world with the markers. When they mark, it doesn't follow a mono line like a vector along points. It sees this as a shape, and so it's only going to do the outline. So score is going to score the inside of that line and the outside of the line, this very thin line here. So if you're okay with that, that's fine. If you're not, what you can do is take this shape. Probably what I would do is back over in Affinity. You would need to take all of these shapes, like say get rid of this outline, and design as such. Take the red and go and right now it's got a red fill. I could go to the stroke, make it black, and if you look at the red, if I do a very small vector here, then we could probably get away with it. And what you could do in this, again, is how much time do you want to take on this. So right now I've got one layer with both a fill and a stroke. If I were to duplicate that layer and, well, I'll keep the stroke as black on the top layer, and then go to the fill and get rid of it, and back on the other layer and get rid of the stroke. So now what I've got is a fill layer for my engrave that's red, and I can set the power to such. And then on top of that, you're going to have a vector layer, which would, work as a score line a little better than that thick shape I had before. So if I were to export just this curve, well, it did the red on the lips as well. So over to laser box, I'm going to say export, and I'm going to say Santa lips or whatever. And I'll go back over to XCS and Control Z to get that looking kind of back to where it was. I'll set everything to score, and I'll go to image and find Santa lips. Santa lips. Okay, so now you see when this one is set to score, this is an actual line. So you started out with your line drawing that your wife did in Procreate. The thickness of her strokes with the Apple Pencil is going to determine how essentially big that shape is when you vectorize it. So if you want to get a really thin, tight line, then what you'll need to do is do that. Make it a stroke. And now this is a pure vector and not a shape. And so it will follow that line. Now, the only problem you're going to have here, besides if you do the whole design and then attach them all together, you'll be able to go and just align these very easily just by using your align tools. But for this, I'm having to eyeball it because there's really no frame of reference for it. But you'll see that I'm only getting this inside. So if you wanted it to be on the outside of that shape, that's, you're gonna either have to do like sort of combine this white shape. If you wanted to get on the outside of that, you're gonna have to make another. I'm trying to think how you do it. This one would go inside. If you wanted the outside, yeah, I assume we could probably just do it by taking all these layers, and we're going to group them. I'm going to create a duplicate, and this is again how, if you wanted to make a nice big shape for a backer board, I would combine the entire group, and now you end up with this giant blob here. I'm going to change it to black if it'll let me. That's the okay, I made a stroke, which is what you want to do anyway. So I don't want these holes in here, so I'm going to go to layer, geometry, and I'm going to fill those holes in. So now that we've got like a nice, when you're cutting your laser stuff, you get a nice cut out there. Obviously, I'm going to have to go in and make a white shape for the eyes because they were cut out before. Now they're not. So I have to go back and get my vector flood fill and set to white, white, white. You know, this is just troubleshooting. You figure out that, oops, I goofed. And I'll select the white layer and just combine that so that it sits on top. Go up here. And then, yeah, back down here, we'll go with this. Again, layer, geometry, fill holes. So we have a nice, you know, big shape to put everything on. You could do an offset and make this a little bit larger. But you could also make a copy of this and do the same thing I did before. I'm going to turn off the fill on that particular layer, and I'm going to make it have a stroke. I'll make it red just so we can see it, and it's not above anything. Hasn't gotten out. Hasn't gotten out to the outside yet. Alright, now where's my stroke? It's still not big enough? Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, I had that, stupid. I had that layer isolated. So anyways, now I've got this, I made a copy of that background and I just made a, let's see, it's done the same thing. Let me see. Go and isolate that layer. Okay, yeah. So it's just too big of a stroke still. So now I can go up to like a 1-point stroke. And now I've got a score line that will go all the way around the outside. So it, in combination of having the outline there, it's going to also have this stroke on top of it, which will act as a score line for you. So anyways, that's a lot. Yeah, sorry. And I'm trying to think what else the question was. But yeah, I think that's the workflow I would do. I would start out with your line work, open it up in Inkscape, use the path image trace, trace it. I would pull it into Affinity, take that outline, make it into shapes, and take those shapes and either cut them or set them to an engrave, into an engraving power, each shape in a different power setting, which will get you a nice, or just do it as a PNG, and just get a nice look. I would, you know, cut them out or paint them, whatever you want to do. It's nice to have the shapes there in case you want to do something else with it later, the same image, but it doesn't hurt to export it as a PNG and just do a regular engrave like a normal photograph. Use that grayscale to preview how you think it might look as far as the contrast between colors, you know, because when it doesn't see the hue, it only sees the value of the color, or rather, you know, the darkness, the exposure, the lightness of the color. So that view really helps. If you want to get a nice crisp outside and you want to score, use this stroke feature and outline, make a copy of your shape, and then get rid of the fill and just create a stroke, a nice solid stroke. If you find that there's a space that you don't like in between, say like your red here, and then you're going to have this black line and then a score line, you could go in and when you do this vector flood fill, instead of just making the red part, you could go and you can make this red as well, and so you'd have a bigger shape there. But again, that's going to require you, now that you've got this copy and all red, you're going to have to go in with a knife tool and slice out that area, and just to make it the shape that you want, which I think is overkill. You know, I really don't think you need to do that. It's going to look nice. You'll have you can have you can take that shape, make a score line, then you're going to have the engraving of like real dark in between, and then another score line, which is going to give it a nice look. I think it's going to sort of frame every little piece out with hard line engraving, hard line engraving. It's going to look good. I think you get a real nice effect, almost exactly what we're looking at right now. This effect of like your color with two lines like that to sort of frame that to frame this her artwork, the original line work is gonna have some depth to it and be sort of chiseled away with that score from the rest of it with the engraving in between. So anyways, I hope that helps. I know it was a lot, and I probably went back and forth like a monkey and swinging from vine to vine trying to get you there, but I hope I got you there. If I didn't and you have more questions than answers, then ignore me or send me a message and I will try to clarify something. I sometimes it's easier to do a screen share on Facebook like with a video message, and what I'll do is I'll record it like this. We'll have the conversation while you ask questions and you watch my screen or follow along on yours. And then when we're done, I'll send you a copy of the video, and that way you can review it later, if you forgot something. I found that when I do this for people, if I haven't done something for a while, I'll go back and teach myself. So it's kind of a nice little time capsule. But you guys have a great weekend, and keep showing me your creations. Gives me ideas, and I'm building a bridge for a guy in Austin right now. So, get a big old section started here. Little beams are going to lock them all together. It's 4 layers thick and a 4 foot long span of the Pennybacker Bridge in Austin. So far so good. I designed it all in Affinity, and so it's great software. If you don't have anything that you're married to, then I highly recommend it. It's really, really pretty cool, and allows me to do a lot of fun stuff. Just my pieces laid out here, and I just export this right into XES, and these are cut, and then these get scored so I can keep track of the pieces. Anyways, I didn't need to add that on, but I did anyways, so we'll talk to you later.